Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the media. Today was another fairly good day. The process completed some 87 boxes from the various regions, and as usual, the 87 boxes recounted today again materially confirmed the figures and numbers that are contained in the statements of poll that are in the possession of the People's Progressive Party. Um, our latest analysis of Mingo's fraud shows that in 87 boxes so far, Mingo fraudulently allocated to APNU AFC a total of 4,495 votes and reduced the PPP votes by 758. So, in only 87 boxes, Mingo fraudulently allocated to the APNU 4,495 votes and reduced from the PPP illegally 758. So you're appreciating now the magnitude of the fraud perpetrated by Claimant Mingo. You would recall that Mingo's fraud affected over 400 boxes. We are only at number 87. 400 boxes his fraud contaminated, and we are only at 87 boxes, and we are able to establish that he allocated 4,495 votes to APNU and reduced PVP votes correspondingly by 758. Now, this is a huge margin, and we are only at 87 boxes. You would recall that the PPP lost the last elections by just about 4,500 votes. That's the GECOM's results. Just about 4,500 votes. That is what the 2015 election results show. That the PPP lost by just 4,500 or thereabouts. And here it is that 4,495 votes Mingo has taken and given unlawfully to APNU AFC. So you see the magnitude and extent of the fraud that was perpetrated by Mingo. We continue to hope that the additional stations that GECOM said they will establish will be established quickly. Um, we have no doubt that once the stations are established, there is we are going to have greater alacrity in the process. We don't know the number as yet, the number of new stations that is, but we hope as early as possible, certainly before Monday, that whatever the number is, that those stations will be up and running. And what is also lamentable is the sloth that is affecting the Region 4 recount. Now, you know that the Region 4 ballots or the Region 4 results is what triggered the controversy in the first place, because there were no objections in relation to the results of the other regions. It is Region 4 that Mingo attempted to perpetrate that naked and blatant fraud. And it is Region 4, therefore, that the nation is anxious to see concluded. Unfortunately, Region 4 is the region that is taking the slowest in the exercise, and one can venture to contend that that may be a deliberate strategy by some element. We are hoping that in the new stations that are likely to be established, that they would be allocated to the counting of Region 4 ballots, or as many as possible, will be allocated to the counting of Region 4 ballots so that we can bring greater rapidity to the recount of the Region 4 ballots. Of course, as the process continues, APNU, AFC continue with their narrative of objecting. I pointed out to you yesterday that they were counting or recounting region South Georgetown ballots. Today, they continued along that trend, and like yesterday, there were no objections on the ground of dead people voting and migrated people voting. In Region 5, they counted another stronghold of the APNU AFC, and again, there was no discernible line of objection on the ground that dead people voted and migrated people voting. The Region 4 stronghold I speak about is Hope Town, where, as expected, APNU would have done very well, as that is one of their strongholds. So the pattern is very clear that only in PPP strongholds dead people and migrated people voted. GECOM machinery in PPP stronghold, according to the theory being postulated, malfunctioned on elections day only in PPP strongholds. And the APNU polling agents colluded with the PPP, and the presiding officers colluded with the PPP and allowed tens of thousands of dead people and migrated people to vote. How that happened, I don't know. But that very system functions throughout the country, but in APNU, AFC strongholds, that very system that was so penetrated so easily and overwhelmed so easily in PPP stronghold stood firm in South Georgetown and in Hope Town. So the dead people perhaps at Laura Pantier, they rested the elections day, but the dead people in other parts of the country were alive and voting on elections day. That is their narrative, and that's what they want the people of this country to accept. So I might as well help them to promote it. But that is the confusing cacophony of noises that they keep making. I heard Aubrey Norton here speaking to you earlier today. Now, I don't have to advise APNU AFC about how they project themselves to the media and to the rest of the country. But if they choose to put Aubrey Norton here to say the things I have heard Aubrey Norton say, well, that's a matter for them, because that's the most ridiculous litany of allegations I heard made for the longest while by Norton. All Norton has to do, rather than come here and pontificate and accuse the PPP of this strategy and that strategy, is simply come here and produce their SOPs, produce Mingo spreadsheet. And what you should have been asking Norton, for example, is how is it if all these things that he said happened on elections day, so many tens of thousands of people voted on elections day, who are dead and who are living in America, and let us assume that all of that happened, how come they claim that they won the elections just after that? Every one of them are on record as saying that they won the very elections that they come here every day to castigate. And let us assume by some stroke of miracle that at the end of this process, the process declared them to be the winner. What will he do then? What will Norton and the APNU do then? Because so many dead people they would have claimed voted, and so many migrated people voted, and suppose they end up winning the recount. It's as if they don't put any thought into what they come here and they say, and they come here and they publish the most ridiculous and unbelievable allegations. So, we can't stop them. That is their growing narrative. And you would note, and I have observed that, the more substantial leaders are not coming anymore. I believe that they recognize that their story is ridiculous and it's a comedy. But the other, I suppose, they have passed the mantle on to people like Mr. Norton to come here and try to theorize about what strategy the PPP has or had, to get dead people. We don't have any strategy. People voted, and we are counting the ballots, and their attempt to expand the scope of the exercise beyond what it is, that is a recount, is again a ludicrous attempt that is not making sense. Now, Norton said to you that a whole host of things must be examined in this process. Permit me to go back to the evolution of this process. This process is a recount. It started with the chairperson giving an undertaking. Then the president and Mr. Jagdeo spoke in a CARICOM communique about a recount. And a recount of what? A recount of the ballots. What does that mean? It simply means that the ballots that were counted on election night must be counted again. It's as simple as that. It's an arithmetic exercise. The boxes has ballots. You look at you go into the boxes and you count those ballots that were counted. This exercise has no scope to investigate who died and who, because the system has its own safeguards. But I don't want to expend too much energy and time in debunking the same allegations over and over again, except to say that they are cumulatively and individually ludicrous. That is what I will say at this point in time. I see one news report say that the hundreds of death certificates were produced. That is not so. And in any event, let us assume that these people produce death certificates. You have to show that there is a ballot in there that was cast by that dead person. Physically, how that is possible, I don't even know. But it's some kind of makeup artist who was working full time on that day, making up people quickly and sending them in to look like people. Some ridiculous Nancy nursery rhyme kind of story like that. It simply doesn't make sense. And this exercise has not the capacity or the personnel or the scope to engage in the kind of investigation that they would like this process to embark upon. So I don't know what is the game plan and where that is taking them, but it's simply ridiculous. But they continue to sing that tune day in, day out. I heard Norton make reference to 1997 elections. The PPP won those elections by over 60,000 votes, perhaps the largest margin of victory that the PPP has had since 1992. And yes, the CARICOM team came here and did a forensic audit because APNU PNC reform at the time, that was what they were called, refused to accept the results. And you can go into your archives and you will see that the forensic audit that was done confirmed the veracity of the results disclosed by GECOM in 1997. So I don't understand. This guy comes here and he manufactures story and he tells you. So the narrative that they have constructed, as I continue to see, make no sense, and no sensible person buying into it anyhow. But I suppose they don't have anything else to say because they can't handle the numbers. They can't handle the number of ballots that are being counted. So they have to come up with this freak show, sideshow, as it goes along to distract attention from the real thing, which is the counting of or the recounting of the ballots. And that's all this exercise is about. It's about the recounting of the ballots. You want to examine something else, you have to go to another forum. This forum here is simply not for that. So I thought I would come out here and share those sentiments with you, and I will invite your questions.
Mr. Nandlall, it seems as though both parties are claiming truth to right with regards to the anomalies, with regards to the fraud. The PPP, they are focusing on Region 4, which Mr. Aubrey Norton said a few minutes ago that that's a narrative created by your party, and you're saying that.
What is a narrative?
And you're saying,
Mingo, there, I don't think.
Not finished. You're saying that the narrative now created by the APNU is that there are fraud, irregularities in the other regions, which your party is claiming have no basis.
My friend,
who are we to believe?
No, I don't want. I want you to believe the facts. Every single human being who have their faculties intact, including, well, I don't know if Norton has his faculty intact, but other members of the APNU team, they know that Mingo perpetrated a fraud. Nobody in their right mind will continue to deny that. And that is what the recount is about. And these are the very people who claim, how is it then, with all this narrative that Norton talking about happening in the other regions, how is it that they claim that they won the elections? You know that. Your newscast covered many stories with the president claiming victory, the Lawrence claiming victory, Basil Williams claiming victory of the same elections. And they were gunning for the results to be declared. It's only when CARICOM come in and then you had to go to the court and their backs were against the wall, then the election suddenly was big and bad. Now, any sensible person can see through. The narrative that they're constructing is not even sensible. It's not even sensible, as I said to you. And every one of them who come here, they construct a slightly different variation. And that is why I said to you a couple of days ago that, if you're coming to tell a fictitious story, you must go and practice it. You must do the thing that the people do at the cultural center. You rehearse and so on. So when you come here, you have a consistent story. And every one of your members who come here must ensure that they sing from the same hymn book. So you have different people. That is why I described it earlier as a cacophony of noises. It's not sinking at all.
Mr. Nandlall, I would like to get back to the question of the purpose or the objective of the recount here, right? And I would like to draw your attention to the order.
Yes.
And the order says to conduct of the aforementioned recount of ballots cast at the said election, including reconciliation of ballots issued with ballots cast, destroyed, spoiled, stamped, and as deemed necessary, the counterfoil stock authenticity
Yes.
of ballots and the number of voters list and crossed off as having voted, etc., etc., etc. And it talks about examining the ID cards and so on.
Now, do you hear what it says here?
Yes.
A recount, and you must take into account those things. You now tell me where it speaks to dead people and migrated people
It says
voting.
statistical anomalies, occurrences recorded in the poll books and so on, which will include all of those things, like employment of certificate of employment and so on.
Because all of that are in the packages. So you count everything that is in the package.
So
it doesn't speak to an alien putting a ballot there. It doesn't speak to a dead man putting a ballot there. You have the ballots there. You have the materials there. Count it. That is what it means. Ensure that the ballots match up. You know how many electors there? If the ballots cast, they match up. The spoiled ballots, it does not include that. It's an exact